This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. The Manitoba government has tabled its last budget before the next provincial election. Here are some of the major points. Provincial spending is up $2 billion to $22 billion for 2023. Every department gets a spending hike. Health gets the biggest increase of that hike at 7%. School rebates will also rise 50%. That means the owner of an average home in the province would receive a rebate check of $774. The province's debt will also rise to $31 billion. That is up $1.5 billion. Lots of numbers there, but Premier Heather Stefanson says this budget is a balancing act based on what Manitobans want. She spoke with our Bartley Kivas on CBC Winnipeg News at 6.
So what we are doing is we've been listening to Manitobans. We've heard loud and clear from them again that they want some tax relief. They've had troubles making ends meet. They want more investments in healthcare, education, justice, social services. We're doing just that while also continuing our reduction to the deficit. So we are being fiscally prudent.
What would you say to folks that would say, hey, what were you doing the past few years? Why didn't we see this kind of spending before?
You know, we've had record increases in revenues. We know that there's been inflationary pressures out there. So what we are doing with those increases in revenues is actually giving it back to Manitobans by the way of tax relief, as well as further investments again in healthcare, education, social services, but also being fiscally responsible by making sure that we're on target by reducing that deficit again this year, and we're still on target to balancing the budget, a few years out.
Okay, so that's what the Premier has to say, but the opposition leaders today had less positive things to say about the budget. They questioned the sincerity of the PC government and the fiscal prudence.
This is not a fiscally responsible budget in any way. They're running a $300 million deficit, and they're giving away hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in unfunded tax cuts.
We all remember the 7 years of cuts that started under Brian Pallister and that have continued under Premier Stefanson. And now all of a sudden during an election year, Manitobans want, the PCs want Manitobans to forget. The PCs would like to change the channel.
Now, another part of the budget is the PC government will raise the basic personal income tax exemption and plans to adjust tax brackets next year if they are re-elected. CBC's Josh Crabb now on if that resonates with Manitobans in this election year.
One of the key pieces of the 2023 budget is a tax break for Manitobans. It's a move being welcomed by Lisa Gravelins, who says she suggested it in pre-budget consultations.
The amount of take-home pay that the employee takes home does raise. Okay. So I have been actually suggesting that in the surveys, that the engaged surveys.
It's called the basic personal exemption amount, and the Progressive Conservatives are increasing it from $10,145 last year to $15,000 this year. It's a move that means most earners will save $448. An additional 47,400 Manitobans will be exempt from paying any income taxes. Alex Polsky sees it as a good first step, but not a move that's likely to win over his support in an election year.
As far as my vote goes, it's not going to have an impact. I got to look at what each group is going to do and not just kind of see the money and look at the dollar sign solely.
Kat Laychuk is more concerned about fixing healthcare. Income tax relief won't win over her vote.
Under the circumstances of what's gone down, no, I wouldn't currently support them.
Increasing the basic personal exemption isn't the only change the PCs are making. They're vowing to raise all tax brackets in 2024 if they're re-elected, which will lower the tax burden on Manitobans even more. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
All right, here's what else is making news tonight. The city says a Winnipeg towing company has been overcharging them for years. City officials have put forward a proposed settlement with the company to avoid a lawsuit. But as Cameron McLean reports, the city would get back less than half of what it's owed.
I'm here at Tartan Towing's compound on Higgins Avenue. The city says Tartan overcharged them by $1.1 million over the course of 6 years. The city hired the company to do courtesy tows during residential parking bans starting in 2016. In December 2021, the city checked its records and found that several tows that it paid for didn't happen. That led to a wider review of all the contracts it had with Tartan. Now the city says it negotiated a settlement with the company to pay back less than half of what it's owed, $446,000. The chair of the Public Works Committee says she thinks the city should go after the full amount.
The city has the contract with the towing company. However the towing company delivers the service, it's not our problem. They are responsible for delivering the service. I wonder why the towing company wasn't also checking with their contractors.
I asked for an interview with someone from Tartan, but the company said no one was available. A report from the city says it has changed tracking methods to make sure this doesn't happen again. It also says Tartan fired some of the drivers involved, gave a warning to others, while others have left the company. The Executive Policy Committee will consider the matter at its meeting next week. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A sex assault trial is underway in Winnipeg for a retired priest who worked at a residential school at Saugeen First Nation. 93-year-old Arthur Massé has pleaded not guilty to a charge of sexual assault dating back nearly 50 years. Victoria McIntosh asked for a publication ban on her name to be lifted. She told the court details of the alleged assault when she was 10 years old. She says seeing him today brought back memories.
I felt like that little child again at 10 years old. But when I held my coat that was thrown back at my mother and called it un sauvage.
Massé denies the allegations he assaulted McIntosh. That trial is expected to continue tomorrow. Here's a look at downtown Winnipeg tonight. Meteorologist John Sauder is tracking a system that could bring us some snow later in the week. The details are just ahead.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. The trade and upgrade event is on now.
Well, we were expecting increasing cloud through our Tuesday afternoon. That's exactly what we got. And boy, not going to see much sunshine, even right through the rest of the week and on into the weekend, unless you're in northern Manitoba. Pretty bright Wednesday across the north and pretty quiet weather pattern. What we're seeing in the south, and I know a lot of talk about some snow on the way, and I've really been talking about this Monday, Tuesday, about how Wednesday and Thursday, a lot of this snow is going to be south of the international border. And there are even some weather warnings for Wednesday, Thursday in areas like Minnesota and South Dakota, but we're not going to see a whole lot here, at least until the weekend. You look at the 48-hour snowfall that takes us out to Thursday at about supper time. Southeast corner will catch some of this, so will northwestern Ontario, but Winnipeg, Portage, and right along the Trans-Canada corridor, only 1 to 2 centimeters by the end of Thursday, and there's more accumulating snow down to the south of us. So tonight, cloudy. We stay warmer, minus 14. It will be a milder day on Wednesday, and we will likely see some flurries late in the day with a high of minus 6. And then on Thursday, a little bit warmer again for the weekend, but only a couple of centimeters. It's Saturday night to Sunday. That's where we could pick up as much as 10 centimeters.
So don't put the shovels away just yet. Thanks, John. That's your late news for this Tuesday. Thank you for being with us. Before we go, a quick programming note for you. Tomorrow at 11, you'll see a combined broadcast for both Manitoba and Saskatchewan, which will be hosted by our colleagues at CBC in Regina. We will be back with you here on Thursday. I hope to see you then. Have a great night.